Hey, what's up? This is Blake from the Tone Mob Podcast, and I'm bringing you another one today. This one is the recording from a few months back when I talked to my good friend, Mr. Robert Keeley of Keeley Electronics. Legendary pedal maker, legendary dude, and one of the best guests ever on the podcast. The audio version released a couple months ago, and you can go listen to that if you are more of an audio podcast person, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, etc. But let me give you a little backstory here. Rob Keeley is a legend in the pedal game. If you know pedals at all, I'm sure you've heard of Keeley Electronics. And if you haven't really dove into pedal history, you probably still have heard of the Keeley compressor. Actually, yeah. Right here. I got the Keeley Compressor Plus just sitting here. They are incredible stuff. And Rob is a fantastic dude as well. He was a guest on episode, I want to say like episode 10 or 12 of the podcast. We're at 330 something now. And so this was a much needed update. He's one of the best guests ever. He's came here to the shed and done an in-person one. And I needed to get him back on. There's been so many changes at Keeley. We were in need of an update in a bad way. So we got that done. It was fantastic. And you can watch this video, or you can go, like I said, to the audio platforms and stream it wherever you stream your podcast. But without further ado, let's get into this episode with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Robert Keeley. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have returning one of the most requested and best guests the podcast has ever had, Mr. Robert Keeley. How's it going, my man?
Uh-oh. I lost your signal, Blake.
Oh, can you not hear
now
me anymore?
I got you.
Oh, okay.
Now I got you.
All right.
So it's been a while, huh?
It has. It has been a minute. I was thinking about it. It's actually been the last time we recorded was back when Nick from Catlin Bread passed away, which was a long time ago. You came here.
Yeah. I think that was 2018, maybe.
I think so. And you were a really early guest on the podcast, and I actually wanted to bring you on again to say thank you, because your episode, the first episode that we did together, was when I really realized, I'm like, oh wait, I think I'm onto something with these conversations, you know?
Yeah.
And some people are still going, whenever I post in the Facebook group or whatever, I'd be like, what's your favorite episode? The Robert Keeley #1 is always one of people's go-to favorites. And so, you really helped give me some extra inspiration to just keep the hammer down on this thing. And now here we are.
Was I drinking or something? What made it so special?
You were just very open about some of the struggles you'd been through, and we went places that I didn't expect to go. And
how fun!
Nobody else had heard that from the horse's mouth in that same way either. So it was helpful for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. It is kind of traumatic when you go through things that change your life and your whole structure, and everything that was normal is now different. And you see people on Facebook going through life changes, and you kind of want to talk about it to try to rationalize it in some way or organize it in your brain. So yeah, it was, it seemed traumatic for me at the time. So yeah. I'm sure I did. But I love being open. It's much easier to remember the truth than to just try to make up something, so this is what I can talk about. Yeah,
exactly. It's way easier to keep that straight. What actually happened. It's a lot easier. I don't have the mental capacity to
Neither do I.
Through. No, it's just not going to work. I don't think anybody ultimately does, it always ends up tripping up somehow. It's never,
isn't that the truth?
It's never the way forward, really.
Yeah.
But man, talk about some changes since 2018 for both of us. I mean, but especially you down there. I mean, I keep threatening to. I've got so many friends in Oklahoma. I need to come down there and check out everything. But man, the new shop, the new stuff you guys are able to do down there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, man. So we are just a little more than 1 year into the new shop, and it is a dream come true. I had no idea how good life could be here at this new shop. So the new shop is 17,000 square foot. The old shop was probably somewhere around 12,000 or something like that. Mm-hmm. But the primary thing that just works for us is that we're all under one roof now. We were in 6 different compartments prior, and so now it's all under one roof, and everyone feels, you know, that there's a path to the bathroom that's clear and logical. I think we have 11 stalls now. So whoa. when you have, I know, right? So when you have people, you know, trying to figure out how to feel comfortable at work, that sure helps, having lots of bathroom stalls.
Absolutely.
And on Thursdays we have a lunch that I get for everyone, and so we get to eat together on Thursdays. So it's another good reason to have 11 bathroom stalls. I mean, there's not 11 bathrooms, but there's 11 stalls.
11 stalls. No, it's one of those things, you know, when you start looking, this is not something I ever thought I was going to have to put brain power into, right? But you start looking for new space for your business. Now, granted, like, not for Tone Mob, it's just me, so that's easy. But for the String Joy stuff, this constant struggle is it's not ever something I had to think about, like parking. Like, we got to make sure we have parking space for everybody, because while we're not the biggest business in our little block that we're in, we definitely have the most employees because it's really labor intensive. So there's a lot of hands-on stuff that has to occur. Same with pedals. There's a lot more hands-on stuff that has to occur with pedals than, you know, other types of manufacturing. Not every type of manufacturing, but what we do is really labor intensive. And yeah, the amount of parking stalls a space has suddenly becomes extremely important to deciding whether you're going to move there or not. It's weird.
Yeah, and this space, that was one of the first things I looked at with each and every potential space, was how many parking spots are there. And so I think we have approaching 40 now, but that might seem like a lot, but if we're hovering at 35 and I think we've gone up to 38 employees, that's it. You're done. Yeah. I mean, you can start parking on the street, I guess. And, you know, that's not as comfortable. So it's going to require something to grow at least a lot bigger than we are now. So parking spaces and stuff like that become really important. But the new space also just has allowed us to do everything better. There's nothing I miss about the old 6 garage storage shed looking units, you know, strung together. So we get to organize our inventory better. We get to, you know, line out production and direction of flow a lot better. And everyone seems to be happy in the new space too. So that just makes everyone work a little bit better, you know.
One of the cool things about Keeley as a company, I think, is how much you guys do in-house. And it's actually about to be a lot more, even down to like the case manufacturing and stuff you've hinted at and talked about here and there. Like, there's not a whole lot other than, you know, the actual, you know, running a steel foundry that you could do in-house there. It's really impressive to have all that under one roof. And I think a lot of people don't understand why or what some of the benefits to that are. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, in the beginning, we'd get put behind, or we were subject to other people's production skills and schedules, and so we were constantly having to work around, you know, shortages of cases or parts or circuit boards, and I found that it was pretty easy to consider either managing a loan or something like that to purchase the equipment and get it paid off and become profitable at some, aspect or some part of the pedal manufacturing. So in the beginning, the first thing that of course, in the very beginning, I was drilling the cases myself, and then eventually you get a couple other guys to start drilling cases. But then you start to need thousands of cases, and working a bunch of drill presses didn't cover it. So the first thing we did was get some CNCs. And, in the beginning, it might seem like $15,000 or $20,000 for a CNC is a lot, but when you pay somebody else to do it, they're doubling their money. So it
Sure.
doesn't take very long to recoup the cost. And that was just is just the kind of way I've kind of approached bringing everything back in house, finding out that powder coating wasn't that hard, and we can get a much better quality if you have a full-time employee that's just dedicated to doing just pedals. Eventually you get better stuff than the guy that coats oil pipes or something, or lawn furniture. And then I started, when I was getting surface mount circuit boards done by a guy up in Kansas or Missouri, it just seemed like, man, I should be able to do this. But then the equipment became, 250 or 300,000.
Right.
So then it was like, well, it'll take me a couple of years to pay that off, even if I do it at 10,000 a month. But that's what I set out to do, and it managed to work out. So I'm fully addicted to the process of buying machines to make the stuff we need. I mean, I haven't spent a tremendous amount of time, but if I could figure out how to machine our own aluminum knobs or extrude, the material or something like that, I might consider it. I've definitely considered plastic injection molding, and that, I don't know, it's a possibility, but now there's some really slick 3D printers that are like, $60,000 or $180,000 that have a kind of a multi-step process to making the plastic look really refined. And,
Wow.
So that might help with part of the plastic knobs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, at some point in time, I'm like, I wonder if we could make switches.
Right.
It's just it's a plastic molding. It's a spring. It's a couple pieces of lever, a couple pieces of aluminum or copper. And, I don't know, because with things that come up like COVID or supply chain problems or world wars or whatever, you wonder about your ability to source parts from China, since the United States currently doesn't manufacture any surface mount components or components of any sort, not even surface mount. Heck, we don't manufacture electronic components here, maybe integrated circuits in some cases. But so that puts a big dependency on imports, and that it just gets kind of old, being subject to political things, war things, et cetera, et cetera. So it makes you feel very secure being able to make everything under one roof. There's definitely some efficiencies in it. It also allows us to experiment with things and to bring things to, fruition of the project a lot faster. We can release, even though we haven't been releasing things fast because we've been spending a lot of time making it better than we could have imagined. If we do want to do something overnight, we can do it. And that's really cool. That's really, if I need to make a birthday pedal for somebody, we can knock it out, know? So.
Yeah, it's the flexibility that it gives you is really great, but also just, you don't have to be beholden as much to outside influences. And then on top of it, something, since, you brought up wars and all the other craziness that this world has brought, that's something that Scott and I have talked about before. We're like, man, we're all, actually, sounds kind of weird to say, but we're actually aging out of what would probably be a draft situation for most people, which feels really weird because I couldn't say that too long ago. I probably would have been first pull, but but we're kind of getting to the point where, if something real crazy was to happen, and I hate to doomsday the scenario, but we would probably be needed at home.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some application in the military that would require metal to be wrapped around metal, and we can do that. So,
Yeah, that is kind of cool. I've thought about stuff like that too. Like, there was a time no one wanted to go to war, I'm sure, but it was 1940s, and all of a sudden the government's telling you, hey, you need to build something, or you need to go fight, and so, or one of the two. So, that always enters my mind too. Like,
would always rather build something. Always would rather build something.
Yeah. Like, for example, I mean, I don't think pedals are going away for a while, but you could imagine a generation of players that could just plug into their cell phone and then output from the cell phone to their amplifier, and they could pull up any effect dreamable or imaginable. They could make their own effects, and to heck with pedals, you know what I mean? Because they're not into playing live, so they don't have to switch them on and off. They're just for entertainment, So, sorry about that. But I often wonder where I could, put my production, abilities to use outside effects pedals. But fortunately, effects pedals are doing well, and that's what I like to do. Not build air conditioner parts,
No,
or something.
exactly. But what's beautiful is you can build air conditioner.
We could if we needed to. I bet you we could.
Yeah. It's always better to be engaged in something that you care about, absolutely. But having the flexibility to do whatever needs done is also it helps you sleep at night. Like we can figure out what needs figured out depending on what the situation is.
So even you were alluding to the new machines that we got down in Norman, I think. Yeah, Jacob's place, and kind of in the same vein as that is when COVID took off. We didn't know if we could open, and we found out through our governor and our state laws that we could be considered an essential business in our state if we manufactured for other people. If we were OEM for other people, it was like one sentence that popped out of a variety of other classifications, and so we got to stay open. So I feel really, really good about that, and so we got to profit. We got to stay in business because we worked with other companies, making stuff for them. And this is kind of in that same vein. What we got is the turret punch and the press brake.
Yeah.
And I realized that this machine should be able to make many more cases than I could use for the foreseeable future, meaning we wouldn't switch all of our pedal cases over. We would still use the cast enclosures that we import and machine ourselves. But wouldn't it be great if the machine could be used to its maximum potential? And I know that Jacob likes making stuff. So when I said, hey, would you like to put this machine at your shop so you could make cases for other people? And as long as we get our cases, and I figured, we could have our cases out in a couple, 2, 3, 4 days, and then he'd have the rest of the month to build for other people. And plus, I think they're just going to look so much cooler. So I'm looking forward to it. It's one of those other cases where when you do it in-house and kind of bring it in and learn how to do it yourself, it just opens up a lot of possibilities,
Absolutely.
If you want to work with other people, or what have you.
Right. We're talking a little bit of inside baseball right now. Last time Jacob was on this show, he was at Mammoth, which is obviously ages and ages ago. Jacob Adams is the guy behind F5 Metalworks, listeners. So if you're curious who that is, F5 Metalworks makes like almost all of the enclosures that you see at various pedal makers across the states. They've worked with almost everybody at this point, and in some capacity or another. So if you have a pedal, there's a good chance it went through F5. In fact, the Slice of Pie pedals that I did with Big Ear, Jacob was instrumental in bringing those to life. So When we say Jacob, that's the Jacob we're referring to. So
yeah, Jacob has done some even circuit design work. Heck, back 12, 14 years ago, 20 years ago, he did some circuit board stuff for me for the Tone workstation. And I know he's done it for some other guys. Maybe it was Emerson. I'm not certain, but some other guys in this area, he's, so not only cases, which he definitely specializes in, but all kinds of pedal stuff. So
Yep, absolutely. So it's probably time for him to come on and chart that career path, because I know exactly what's happened with him because we stay pretty close. But a lot of people don't realize how instrumental he is to the pedal industry at large. It's very important.
Oh no, yeah, definitely huge. I know that at some point in time he had hundreds of customers. Maybe it was at Mammoth or Foresight or something like that. But so I think he's got many dozens of customers now that he does, cases for. So
yeah, I think he's learned that he's got to be a little more selective these days. I think so. But yeah, well, so I told the Facebook group just before we started this that you were coming on, and then my phone blew up. So let's go see what kind of questions they have for you. I know they've got questions. Oh, wow. Yeah, we've got a lot of questions here. Okay.
Great.
All right, here we go. Kevin Fontana, he says, favorite pedals that aren't his. Seems like that's probably been asked before, but he's asking you. Favorite pedals that aren't yours?
Well, there are quite a few pedals that I like. I end up focusing on mine here at the shop, as you can imagine. But,
of course.
I think the Nico Sabatius makes a funky vibe that I really dig. I got about 2 years ago, I don't know, something like that. And he's a wonderful character down in I think Buenos Aires, Argentina. And so there's some new stuff like that. I like the 1981. I just got that one in.
Oh, yeah.
And that one sounds really good. And I'm kind of got it going around the shop to have people listen to it because a couple guys have been excited about it. And I don't know, I've been listening to the JHS at pedal, the Andy Timmons red pedal, since I've been listening to it for months, if not years now. with Andy, I've grown real fond of that sound. That's a pretty cool thing he's got going there.
Definitely.
And so I've always stated that I'm a big fan of the Line 6 DL4. I think that's one of my favorite old time pedals.
You play the new one?
2000. No, I haven't. I've been kind of lazy, or I've been busy with other stuff. But no, I haven't tried the new one. That's what I usually
describe you as. You're very lazy. Yeah, that's what everybody knows you as.
Yeah. But I also got a native audio reverb that I really like. And there's been a couple other things. Let me see if I can peek.
Oh yeah, this is always the move. You gotta. It's like, wait, what's on the bench? Yep.
Well, what was on the bench earlier was Andy Timmons' Mutron 3. He had a Mutron 3 and it had some dirty pots and switches, so I got it going. But I have all the prototypes upside down. So all those black pedals you see over there, those are all mystery new products. They're not the exact same thing, but they're upside down. So...
there's like 5 there, isn't there? 6 maybe? 6 prototypes back there?
Oh yeah. There are, in fact, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 different designs over there that we're working on at different stages. They're kind of related in some way, and but they're all for 2023 is what we hope for.
Very exciting. So maybe we can talk about that.
I like
the cameras are off.
Exactly. I'll give you a little sneak peek.
Nice.
But no, I like a lot of effects pedals that are coming out. I think it's still the golden age of effects where there's lots of sounds that people are playing with, and people are making effects that are more dynamic and expressive. And so I like a lot of the stuff that's coming out. It's all pretty good.
It's pretty amazing. It's an amazing time to be a player. And I feel like we said that when you first came on in 2015, and it's only gotten more expansive and more interesting since then, which I wasn't even sure was possible. But I look at some of the Mara stuff that's come out recently, especially that LVX pedal was just blows my mind every time I mess with it. Like, I don't think there's a limit to what kind of sounds this thing can make. It's so expansive.
I've seen a couple of the videos on that one. That one's great.
It's pretty insane. Well, here's an easy one. Sean Pierce Johnson says, "Can you just tell him how much we all love him?" So there you go.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah. Jake Young. This is a good question. It's something we talked about. I talked about with Wampler on Chasing Tone recently, but it'd be interesting to get your take on it. What would make it cost effective to start doing mods again?
Well, that's a good question. The problem with mods, I think they would still be cost effective even if I didn't raise the prices a lot. The problem is that I don't know if I want to dedicate my workforce to doing that rather than supporting and advancing my own brand, and that's kind of what the turning point has always been. What doesn't make financial sense is when I was purchasing new pedals and was supplying, even to try to supply them to dealers, modded new pedals. So I'd buy cases and cases, 100 DS1s at a time, from Boss, and 100, Tube Screamers at a time every week, and when you try to put your labor onto that and then sell that to dealers, it becomes not very profitable. We're starting off with $100 object and then trying to sell it to the end user for $159. That only made sense if they bought it direct from me. As soon as dealers wanted to be involved, I sure appreciated their support, but it didn't make any financial sense then. It was the margins were just not productive, Right.
You got to factor in labor on top of that $100 initial buy-in. The parts cost isn't super high, but there's a lot of labor. And then, that just does not leave much meat on the bone at all.
Right. So that's one of the financial reasons. I mean, and of course, repeating that I'd rather work on my own stuff than pushing, another person's or another company's product. So you put those two things together and it's I shouldn't do it. We have plans to kind of address that whole mod thing because there's lots of great sounds in there, and it's been a decade or maybe not that long since we put out the Red Dirt and the Super Fat mod. And so, we're looking to try to bridge that gap between our modded sounds and, a new offering of, sounds that might be related to those things.
I see. Yeah. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I see.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, man.
Let's see. Okay. There's like several of the, what is your favorite pedal? Ryan Terry says, just thank him for me. I love my Compressor Plus.
Hey, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, here's a fun one. Adam Kelly Williams says, if you could go back in time and mod any artist's gear, which piece would you choose?
Well, I didn't get to modify any Trey Anastasio, say, compressors or tube screamers. I don't know if he evaluated those. And I've listened to a lot of Fish back in the day, so that would have been fun if I could have gone back in time to do that. Well, heck, if we go back, to the 80s, 90s, when I first started working on gear, then it would have been fun to get all kinds of people like Zappa or Jerry Garcia. That would be fun.
Yeah.
I'd like to get in there and have the time and space to work on stuff with all kinds of new people, Julian Lage, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many great new guitar players. You know what I mean? So
I don't, this is not something that was asked, but talking about that, we can come back to the listener questions later. There's a million of them, and we're not going to get to all of them. I'm sorry. But working with Andy Timmons on the Halo, we should probably talk about that process, because I know that took a while, and I know you really enjoyed that. So how did that get started?
This is my favorite pedal. I mean, this and the Compressor Plus. I really like the Compressor Plus.
It's great.
That pedal does so well for us. But this Halo and working with Andy Timmons has been just tremendous for our company. Because we got to answer to a different kind of boss, if you ask me. Here's an artist that was close enough that he could come up to our shop, or we could go down to his shop. And so when you're judging his immediate reaction that he either likes or loves or dislikes something, it becomes very easy for me to turn to my guys and go, hey, it's not working out. We got to do something about this or that. Or, in the midst of Andy listening to this, I discovered, a sound or a noise that I didn't like myself. You know what I mean? And whether Andy knew it or not, we had to work on a bunch of other things, so that's just been so tremendous for me and my team. It just gives us a big advantage, I think, in working so close with a guy that has ridiculously good ears and that we respect and see eye to eye on all those things. So it's just a perfect fit for us. You know what I mean? So it's tremendous, and I know that Andy feels the same way, because he's like, what's next? You know what I mean?
Oh, there you go.
You know what I mean? And of course I feel the same way too, because it was so successful, but it's so it's a mutual admiration thing. The Halo just gives us such a great sound. It's a unique sound. If you listen to the delays, they don't sound like other things unless you've spent a lot of time constructing dual delays and working on things like that. If you have, then you can catch a glimpse as to how fun it is. But we got to put in other features like the saturate control, which allows you to further smear all the way to distorting the echoes, but it really helps them sit in the mix properly. And so, the music that you're making on the fly, it doesn't get overrun by a bunch of echoes. And once we started to finesse that, and then once we got the modulation sounding very, very sweet, chorus-like, not this repeating, oscillating thing that can be kind of distracting or predictable. Once we got that modulation like that, then it was, further proof that what we're doing is right,
Yeah.
So
did he approach you, or did you approach him about this project?
Well, it's really cool too, because Daniel Steinhardt and Mick Taylor from the pedal show in England, they are the ones that introduced me to Andy Timmons. And he was wanting to find somebody, if I'm not mistaken, to work on this delay sound. And Daniel said, go to Robert. And we started talking, and this back right before COVID, like February 13th of 2020, right before COVID, I had him come up to the shop and listen to a dual delay that we had put together, to kind of show him, hey, so is this what you mean? Is this what you want? And I realized that we weren't getting close to what he wanted. You know what I mean? There was a lot of parts to the sound that we were going to have to work on. And it took a couple years from that point in time on before, we had it. So,
wow.
It was a lot of great work though, because once we got to the point where Andy loved the tonality of it, then we just had to fix all the other things like how is the user interface going to, be designed to work how Andy wants to use it live, so we also made some great decisions there and just got to kind of fine tune how the users operate the pedal. Having a pro who's used to doing all this pedal board switching himself and switching things on the fly was great. Much better than just, say, relying on ourselves here, to decide how guitar players are going to work this pedal, know. So it's kind of interesting when I look back at the Echoes and the Hydro, which in the beginning shared the exact same board, but the user interface isn't as friendly and as slick as what it is in the Halo. So we got to improve not only our sound quality quite a bit, we got to improve just the experience of using the pedal. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, you're right. When you have, we tend to get really wrapped up in the design phase and what we as like kind of glorified basement pedal nerds, and I mean that in the most loving way possible, because I'm definitely one. We tend to use things differently than somebody who's constantly on the road. I have things spread out all over a table. Nobody really does that, not on the road anyway. I mean, unless they're unless that's the way they make music and they're manipulating things in real time. Most of the time it's on the floor and they have to figure out how to engage with it in a way that's quick and efficient and, gets the results that they're looking for. And somebody like Andy, who's played everything under the sun for who knows how long at this point, is going to have a lot of insights that non-touring folks aren't going to have. So it makes all the sense in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
Let's see. What else we got? A lot of just plans. There's just a lot of love being thrown around from everybody, from Dave Trombetti, who's a big supporter of the show.
Thank you.
John Cusack. He says, "Tell Robert thanks for me.
Right.
He'll know why." So there we go.
Well, man, that is so great, because sometimes when you work with cool people, and John Cusack is really a very cool guy, and
absolutely
very, very super nice guy too. So sometimes when you reach out to work with somebody, it's not always, for your financial benefit. And this is probably one of those things he's talking about, is that sometimes you're just like, oh, that's not in my wheelhouse. John would be much better at that than me.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I like taking orders too well. So that's one of the reasons why this Andy Timmons thing is so nice to me, because it is kind of easy to take orders from him, because his ears are so ridiculously good and he's got so much talent that he can, play things and show you, look at the compression in the mid bass when I play this style on this pickup. See, I don't like that much compression. I want a little less compression right there. And,
very specific. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it worked in this case because we were all on board. But sometimes, you have a customer that can be more demanding or want you to do something that might not make sense. And that's where John comes in and builds all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think him and Jacob work together quite a bit. So those two guys are responsible for a lot of pedals, huh?
They really are. Really. Yeah. Cusack, I think, is another one of those like unsung heroes. I think if like real pedal nerds know about his contributions, but the Cusack brand is, much smaller than his actual contributions to the pedal world at large. He's a very important manufacturer, designer, insert everything here type of guy, supplier, all kinds of very crucial roles that he plays in this weird little business that we find ourselves in.
Definitely. Maybe one of these days John and I can share manufacturing numbers, because I don't doubt it. He builds a lot of pedals. I wonder how many pedals you build, John, a year. Get a little competition going with you.
A lot. I know it's a lot. Yes. Yeah. All right. This is going to be, I think, the last listener question, unless we get a new one that comes in. Nope. Just a lot of love. Just a lot of love being thrown around. Let's see. There was one more question. Okay, here we go. and this is going to be the last one, and then we're just going to spiral on our own. Nathaniel Bowden, or Bowden, sorry, I don't know if I'm saying your last name correctly. With so many different pedal companies out there now, is it difficult to try and make new pedals when there are so many different options? What's your opinion on that?
Well, there are a lot of options, and it kind of depends on. There are and there aren't a lot of options. If you're saying there are a lot of options for different pedal companies, yeah, that's great, and everybody has their own. Hopefully, puts their own take and twist on something like that. You know, if you consider, I think Josh did a show on this, kind of pointing out the different types of effects pedals and the categories, and you know, there's only a certain amount of, in my mind, there's only a certain amount of math functions that are musical. And, you know, you can add your dry sound with a time delayed sound and you get an echo. And then if you change that time rate, then you might have a chorus sound if you add them together. You can add and subtract and make envelope filters, or you can make compressors, but they're kind of basic math functions. Mm-hmm. And so there's really only a certain number of things that sound good. You know, if you do exponential functions on sound, it doesn't really always sound that good, or it might just distort and blow up, right? But
yeah, our ears have a limited range that they work in, right?
Yeah, there are truly, you know, a certain number of sounds that sound musical. If you do certain multiplication thing, you get ring modulators, and those sound cool. They might not be the most musical to everyone, so you start to run out of possibilities in terms of what can be done to a signal. Mm-hmm. Except there's this whole world of DSP where you can make it do things that are unrealistic, or, you know, would be very challenging with standard analog audio circuits and stuff like that. So that becomes really fun. And it seems like since the FV1 spin chip, the kind of the entry level DSP has been out for well over a decade, probably 15, 20 years now. You know, more pedal manufacturers and more hobbyists and DIY guys are seeing how easy it is to create in that environment, or you can learn it and then you can start to manipulate these sounds your own way. So I still see there being a lot of possibility. Plus, if you add the fact that, again, designing the user interface or the expressiveness or the dynamics of the pedal, if you make it so that the user can get his intentions through that pedal, you know, with his playing dynamics or some other thing, then you just increase, you know, what somebody can create musically and stuff like that. So that's kind of where the frontiers are. I don't think there'll be a new effect called a, you know, whatever, because we kind of run out of friendly math functions that sound good to the human ear. I don't know. That's maybe my opinion, you know. So, but there's an infinite amount of possibilities with that, you know, mods, you know, any number of things. So no, I still think it's a very fun world. And there's lots of possibilities.
And I think a lot of it, like you mentioned about DSP, and this is something that I've been exploring a lot more lately. It's just like you can do things, you alluded to this a little bit, that aren't physically possible in the real quote unquote world. You know, even just from a recording perspective, you know, I recently got the Benson plugin suite, and I've been playing with that, and it sounds, if you just use it normal, it sounds ridiculously good. It's so it's almost silly. But then you can do things like, I want to put the Benson Fuzz in between the amp and the speaker cab and see what that sounds like. You can't do that in real life. You'd blow everything up, you know. Or I want to put the reverb tank, you know, after the speaker cab and see what that sounds like. You can't do that in real life, but it sounds really good when you do. And so when you get even more granular, you start looking at the actual code of things and where you can take these Legos and building blocks and start constructing. I think you can get truly new sounds from existing effect types. You know, if you put a chorus in a different place and, you know, in in some sort of parallel signal path with something else, it's going to be something that no one's ever heard before because it's not physically possible to do in real life. So yeah,
that is really one of the things that makes the Halo so nice for me and my team is there are certain ways that we put things together that are not conventional. And what I mean to say is that Brett Kingman, you know, the guy that does the demos down in Australia, super nice guy. I'm always interested in his feedback because for some reason I hear it better. When he says something to me and he says he doesn't like it or he likes it, it really resonates. So he introduced the pedal, I think, I hope I don't have any of this wrong, to the Fractal FX type world, or he noticed that some people were trying to get a simulation going of the Halo. And we noticed that the way that they were assembling the building blocks within that FX environment, what wasn't the way that we were putting together the sounds in the Halo. And so we gave them a block diagram of the way that we assembled the sounds, just using the same things that you were talking about. What if you put it here? What if you mixed it here? What if you did this? And that was enough to give them the ability then to create more accurate sounding patches of the Halo. Okay. And so if I'm not mistaken, they had to adjust something to be able to either mix or to get the sound the exact same way we had that we have in the Halo. So it is, and there are certain non-linearities, non-linear aspects to this pedal that are really kind of mistakes. But then when we put it back the right way, it should be, Andy was like, "Yeah, don't like that." And we're like, wow, you really like that, the sound of that mistake better. And so we leave things in there that sound good to the human ear, but technically might not be right. So yeah, there's the Halo has been such a fun experience.
That's musical equipment in general, right? The whole history of rock and roll is basically using equipment in ways that it wasn't intended to be used and finding cool sounds. It's one of my favorite internet stories, and I've told this on the podcast a bunch, and I wish I could cite where I saw it. This is before I was even on the internet doing anything other than just reading and nerding out. I remember this story of a student who took I believe it was a Death by Audio fuzz into their electronics class. And then the instructor was like, "This is the dumbest layout, worst thing that you could possibly do electronically. The transistors are backwards. There's all kinds of just nonsense going on in here." But he's like, "Yeah, but it sounds awesome. So is it wrong? If it functions and it makes the sound you're looking for, what is correct? Correct is, does it get the sound you want at the end of the day?" And I think, especially in rock and roll, we've been doing that since day one, basically.
Yeah. I remember when I was going to college and I'd asked the instructor, Dr. Lespiza, I'm like, "Hey, can you tell me how this op amp would work in this, guitar effect pedal, and what's this doing?" And he's like, "Why in the world would you want to do that to sound?" You know what I mean? He's like, I don't know if that's a very good idea. And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. It's a great idea. I just want to understand it better."
Right. You don't get it. Maybe I need this class. I'm going to start teaching this class.
So funny.
Another thing that I think is interesting, and I know you'll have your own perspective on this, but Oklahoma is this weird pedal-centric capital of the world, basically. But most of the routes seem to lead back to Keeley in some way, shape, or form. It's from Walrus to Old Blood to F5. There's so much of it that comes from your shop. Is that because of the culture that's in the shop, just always trying to expand and learn, or what do you attribute that to?
I think it's a testament to how big of a jerk I am. Okay. Because I mean, it has to be, right? If all these people are leaving the flock right? And creating their own pedal companies. There's got to be one reason why they don't stick around. It's probably got to be me. So maybe I'm challenging to work with. You know, that's a great thing. You know, if we applied it to, say, Mike Pierre, Analog Man, he must be a great guy to work for, because I don't see many other Connecticut-based effects pedal companies. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe something like that. I guess if you have a bunch of string companies that crop up in Nashville or what have you, then, you know, you might go, either we're inspiring people or they're just glad to get away.
Right. Yeah.
No, but
you know,
a lot of those, there's a couple pedal companies, and, you know, but I think it is the environment. I think I got a good head start on a lot of people by maybe as much as 10 years on the whole thing. Plus, I'd been doing electronics for almost 15 years before pedals. So I had a lot of experience there. So although I haven't, you know, released, you know, masterpiece effects pedals one after another.
You've got a few, though.
There's been some great ones. You know, I think when people see how fun it is to build effects pedals, and how I can't take all of their ideas. Like if I had, like when Brady Smith worked for me from Old Blood Noise, I remember he had plenty of good ideas, but I was, you know, maybe selfishly focused on my own, or maybe financially focused on a couple other ideas. And I didn't want to venture off in that world for one reason or another. But so to me, it makes sense that when people do move on for all kinds of good reasons or whatever, you know, that they go on to, you know, engineer, if you will, or build their own effects pedals, or strive to do that same thing, because it is a lot of fun building pedals, because your customers are great. You know, they're as crazy as you are. You know what I mean? And I mean, it's a great environment. It's a great goal, great customers. So it's always fun making music. You can listen to your favorite song over and over again. So, you know, it's kind of how it is with pedals. You can do it over and over again, and it's still fun. So I think that's why a lot of people do it is, or there's so many, not people do it, but there's so many Oklahoma companies, because Jacob is a proponent of showing people and helping people how to do it. So you take that desire to kind of teach or help or show people that it can be done, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's much better than flipping burgers. So you combine those things. If you like to help people, you like to make music, you don't want to flip burgers, you can make pedals.
That's right. You can flip pedals. Just keep.
It's a great job for out of work guitarists, is what I say.
It's funny that you say that, because like Wampler, obviously we've become really good friends with him over the years, doing that show every week, you know, and he was in Nashville, you know, session / live guy. That's what he was doing. He was playing, he was trying to make it down there doing that. And he was building pedals on the side, and then people realized, wow, these pedals sound really great. Pretty soon he's chucking them on stage to Brad Paisley and all, like literally, like that's how that whole relationship started. He just like threw a pedal up on the stage.
Brad's like, incoming. Oh wait, that's a pedal. Thank you.
Oh wait, no, this is you're not trying to kill me. This is nice. Yeah. But yeah, that's how that whole thing started. And he said the same thing. Like, yeah, I couldn't make it as a guitarist, so I started making pedals.
Yeah.
And fast forward to now, he's going down to Nashville this weekend as we record this to play on at the Bluebird Cafe, which is a legendary venue down there, for an artist that found him through doing his pedal videos and thought, hey, I love your playing. I want you to play on my record. And now so you never know where pedals can lead you to magical places.
I noticed Brian definitely kept up his guitar chops, and I went through long periods where I didn't pick very much, or not in a constructive manner. So yeah, Yeah, Brian's always jamming on the guitar, so that's good for him. I'm glad to hear he's doing that too.
He's always downplaying it too. He's like, I'm not that good. I'm like, you are a way better guitar player than I am. Like, way better. It's at least in that specific style that he, the country rock type of thing. He nails it. So I'm proud of him. I'm excited that he gets to go down there. And
that's cool.
Yeah, so that's like I say, pedals and music and putting yourself out there. That's the big thing on this show that comes up time and time again. Is just do it. Just put yourself out there. If you have something you want to try, just do it. The worst thing that could happen is nothing. And that's what's going to happen if you don't put yourself out there. So just put it out there and try. And if it doesn't work, come back and try again later, because I never thought I would get to talk to you. I never thought you'd come over to my house and like play a bunch of pedals and hang out. Like, I never thought that was going to happen. And it was like one of the best experiences of my life. So,
I still have it burned into my brain too. I can still picture your house, walking through your house and then going back to the shed where you are now. Mm-hmm. That was unbelievable. And the weather wasn't bad at all, really. I got lucky when I went up there.
It was. I don't remember what time of year it was, but
it was like the fall. Yeah. If I looked on my phone, I'd swear it was September, October or something.
Well, if you ever come back up here, the shed's only gotten more ridiculous.
I can't wait to see it. I need to visit Jack DeVille up there, Mr. Black Pedals.
Absolutely.
I knew you had that shirt on. I couldn't believe it when you sent me a picture, and I was like, wait a second, I know what that has to be. Because he didn't let too many people into his little world there.
No, he's had me there for the last probably, I want to say 6-8 months. He's had me there probably once or twice a month helping him machine, just because I have the flexibility and time and I have background with some of that stuff. So it was real easy for me to just hop in and help him out as needed here and there. And it's nice for me because it breaks up my week a little bit. I tend to kind of do the same things roughly every day, make content, get on the phone with Scott for 3 hours and figure out whatever's going on down in Nashville, And so going to Jack's shop and helping him out, here and there it helps him, and it's a nice break for me. So it works for everybody. I don't know that I'll do it forever, but in the meantime, I'm going down there this Friday. So
that's great.
Yeah, we've become buddies over the years, and that's been a good relationship. We he tends to not let a lot of people in the door or into his life, so it's nice to have gotten to know him.
No, when I went over to his house, he played this amazing drive pedal for me. I couldn't believe how good it was, and I'm always amazed with. He works from a very limited number of parts possibilities, values, and stuff like that. So he's got a very tidy, extremely tidy operation in terms of, his inventory. We have parts, we have sheets and sheets of spreadsheets of different things. I have the tendency to want to try to dial something in and make a lot of exceptions to the rules and do this, include this, include that. And then you end up with a variety of parts values, you know what I mean? You end up with a big inventory. Yes.
Yep. Which is nice from a flexibility standpoint, but it does come with its own challenges. Both ways they've got, everything's a bit of a compromise, right? You got to decide what kind of compromise it is that you want to make. It's just what it is, right?
Jack doesn't compromise much. He's like, no, I need the case to be exactly this by this by this. And, I don't really like that kind of variation. So,
well, yeah, I guess really that's precise. What I mean. He puts his own limitations on it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it works for him. And I can see why he makes those decisions too, and it's not necessarily how my brain works, but I'm not him. So,
yeah.
Well, we're getting down to the last couple minutes of the podcast, and I've actually introduced some somewhat new things to the end of the show since you last came on. So before I do that, why don't we let you take the stage? You're talking to a few thousand people right now. You can plug whatever it is you want to plug. You can shout out, your favorite aunt, or whatever it is you want to do right now. The floor is yours, sir.
Huh. Oh no, I'm not prepared. I think that just like stripped my mind of any thoughts. Wow. Well, I want to respond to all the people sending their text messages and pouring the love on me, because if it wasn't for all those great customers, man, I would not be here. I would not be able to develop the Halo and afford the employees and the ability to do it. So just thanks a lot for all the kind words. I've even been accused of saying that our customers are too good to us, that they won't let me know if something's wrong because they're afraid to say something. I think, you know what I mean? This could be in my head, but they're so, our customers are so darn like good, forgiving, understanding, appreciative of me, that if something isn't quite right, I don't think they really speak up. They just make an allowance for me and give me a pass. And next thing you know, I'm like, oh, dang. I wish somebody would have told me.
Right.
You guys were over there being too nice to me again, just sending me, nice messages. You should have been saying, no, your stuff's broken, man.
Send the accurate feedback. They need it.
That's how good my customers are, that I have a hard time getting brutally honest feedback. I think I got one guy, Nate Napier, that likes to point out stuff. I'm just giving him a hard time. I'm just busting on him. So, but nope, I've got the world's best customers. They are super, super, super cool.
Right on. Okay, here's the final two questions. One of which you've been asked before, but it's been a while, so we'll see if your answer's changed. But this first one, I know I did not. What is your favorite Boss pedal? The wheels are turning. There's so many to choose from.
I know, right? I want to make sure I say something that I really, really, truly think. I guess Boss is more than just a pedal to me. I hate to not really answer the question, to just go exactly in there. Okay, I'll tell you what. I liked what they did, how they changed the TR2 design, because I used to mod those, and they had to change there, and they gave me a little bit of insight. I mean, Boss is always a place where you gain insight from. Those are great engineers and great designers, and
absolutely,
they're just very impressive. So every Boss pedal you can learn from. It's just a huge resource. On not only the level that regular players might see, but because they're set up like a well-organized, fully functioning Japanese, audio company. If you're a service center to them, I was a service center for a while because I was a dealer, then they make all their resources, like for their schematics, available. And I don't know, if you're used to looking on the internet for schematics and you see these hand-drawn things and all kinds of people's guesses, but if you have a question about a Boss product, you just go online if you're allowed to, and you can pull out the service manual, and they have test procedures and alignment procedures and part numbers, and so when I watched them change the TR2 from whatever, I can't remember, the Hitachi OTA that they were using, the IC that they're using, then they switched to a company called That Corp, THAT, That Corp, and they had to go through a design revision or two. So that was like one of the few times I had seen Boss where they kind of, I don't want to say stumbled, but they were forced to, for one reason or another, probably because Hitachi wasn't making the semiconductor anymore, to use That Corp. Well, seeing that made me explore that company. Those guys came from DBX and made the Blackmer cells for compression, and they developed their own and their world-class audio products. And so that's what we got to use in our Compressor Pro and our Bassist and GC2. And so kind of where it starts from just working on a Boss tremolo and trying to add a little bit more volume or give people a volume control to it, led to, significant part of our product line, sounding better. The chip, that design that we use in the Compressor Pro and the Bassist and the GC2 is different than what we use in the Compressor Plus, like the guy mentioned earlier. He said he loved it. The Compressor Plus we sell more of. That's kind of a country guitar compressor, and it definitely adds to. It's like a compressor effect. But if you want a compressor as a tool, and not a sound effect, but just the strict limiting thing, or, then that's where the Compressor Pro or the Bassist really work for us. And it's using those that Corp chips. So all kinds of good Boss products. They're just wonderful. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's an amazing company. I think there for a little bit, particularly in the mid 2000s, they were getting a lot of completely undeserved hate from certain gear snobs, when realistically they're one of the most influential music companies of all time. Like, they're so important to the sound of all kinds of different styles of music. I mean, from The Cure to Nirvana, the list is endless with what Boss has done. It's really incredible stuff. So
even if you look at a concept like, I don't know if they pronounce it COSM, but the COSM. Remember in the mid 2000s, they came out with all the dual pedals, and then they came out with like the Bassman and the Deluxe Reverb, and I think even some of these fuzz pedals, some of them, but you'll see where they have that little badge, COSM based or something like that.
Right.
What I noticed on those circuit boards when I buy those series of effects pedals that they would come out with, is that the circuit board was essentially the same unit internally for a variety of designs. They might have features, populated, and the programming that it was running on their DSP was really what changed. You know what I mean? In my mind, I've seen that done with like car stereos and VCRs, where they'll use the same circuit board, but then they just, modify the schematic essentially and build it differently, and it becomes a different model or product number. And so when I saw Boss doing to that just made me think, oh yeah. So that's how we kind of design a lot of our DSP stuff that way, where it's a platform and then it fits on there. So again, it wasn't just Boss, but definitely, influenced me there, even with their modern digital stuff, you know what I mean? Just the way they assembled, the product lines.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to segue into a question I believe you've answered before, but it is the classic question that I end the show on, and you maybe have changed your answer in recent years, so we'll find out. But what is your favorite kind of pizza?
Oh, no. Okay, right now, if I was to order a pizza right now, there's this place called Marco's Pizza, and they got these pepperonis that curl up, and the grease sits in the center, and, those curl pepperonis or pepperonis, those are the bomb. So I think I'd probably go with that.
Is Marco's like a thin crust place, or is it what's the style?
You know what? I think you can actually order a thin or a thick crust. I could be wrong, but I think at our house we like thin crust pizza in general. So me and my wife. All right,
Marco's with the thin pepperonis, beautiful.
Well, they curl up.
Yeah.
Not only,
they got to be the little guys. Yeah, they turn into cups of greasy goodness.
That's where my interest in pizza lies right now.
I'm with you, man. I'm totally with you. Well, dude, thank you so much for hanging out. We'll slide over to Patreon, and we'll get even weirder with it if you're down.
All right.
Rock on. Okay. Well, for Robert, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Mr. Keeley is an awesome guest, and if you want to hear more of this conversation, you can go to Patreon. Patreon.com/ToneMob will get you access to a ton of back episodes. So many, including an extended version of this conversation with Robert. It was a great conversation. I really have a blast talking to him every single time, and this bonus episode is no exception. So if you go to patreon.com/ToneMob for $5 a month, you will get access to not only the ad-free feed for these episodes, you will also get the bonus episodes, which come out every single week. Additionally, if you like this but you're more of an audio podcast person, you can go to Spotify or Apple or any of your other podcast players and enjoy all 300 plus episodes that I've put out since 2015. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoy the other content that's coming on the channel, and thank you for hanging out. I will talk to you on the internet very soon.